My beloved brothers and sisters, there comes a moment in every soul's journey when the weight of life presses down so heavily that even the strongest heart trembles. There are nights when tears soak the pillow, when hope seems to vanish into the dark, and the mind whispers, maybe this is the end. But I tell you now, no, it is not the end. Because when you pray with the kind of faith that reaches beyond despair, that prayer has the power to end every hardship and unlock the blessings that God Himself has already written for your destiny. Listen carefully, because what I am about to tell you is not just a message. It is a divine principle that has changed the course of millions of lives. There exists a prayer, not a formula, not a ritual, but a cry from the depths of the soul that reaches the throne of God. This is the prayer that breaks chains, opens doors, and calls down light into the darkest of valleys. This is the prayer that moves God to act, that turns mourning into laughter and scarcity into abundance. When this prayer is born from the heart, it carries a power greater than armies, greater than wealth, greater than any storm that has ever risen against you. You see, hardship is not the absence of God's care. Hardship is often the workshop where God molds the heart for greater blessings. Many people think that when they struggle, God has abandoned them. But I tell you, that is the very moment God is closest. The seed does not grow in the light, it grows in the darkness of the soil. And you, my dear friend, are that seed. Your suffering has never been wasted. Every tear, every sleepless night, every unanswered question, they are all pieces of a divine design preparing you for a greater revelation. But the key that unlocks that revelation is prayer. Not the kind of prayer that comes from lips alone, but the prayer that erupts from the soul like fire, that trembles with desperation yet trusts in hope. When you fall to your knees, when the noise of the world fades, and only the heartbeat of your faith remains, something sacred begins to happen. The heart connects with the Creator, and in that connection lies transformation. This prayer does not beg. It believes. It does not complain. It commands faith to rise. It does not fear the outcome. It trusts that the outcome is already written by the hand of mercy. Let me tell you something powerful. God has already prepared the answer before you even utter the prayer. You are not informing God of your need. You are aligning your heart with His promise. Every time you say, "Oh God, I surrender my struggle to you," you are activating the very laws of divine response. God is not deaf to your cry, nor blind to your pain. But He moves not by emotion, He moves by faith. When you pray with unwavering belief, you become a magnet for miracles. I have seen men and women rise from the ashes of complete ruin simply because they prayed not from fear, but from faith. There was a man once who had lost everything. His work, his family, his hope. For weeks, he wandered in despair. But one night, as the world slept, he lifted his hands and said, "Oh God, I do not know how to continue, but I trust you still." That simple sentence changed everything. Within months, doors began to open, hearts began to heal, and what looked like the end became the beginning of a life overflowing with peace. Do you understand what happened? The prayer did not change God, it changed the man. It awakened in him the awareness that God had never left. That is the secret, my friend. Prayer is not about convincing God to bless you. It is about awakening your soul to recognize the blessings already around you. When you pray with surrender, your burdens do not disappear instantly, but your heart becomes stronger than the burden. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start declaring, "Use me." That is when God releases His favor in measures you cannot contain. Every hardship carries within it the seed of a greater blessing. Some of you listening right now are in the middle of your most painful season. Maybe your finances are collapsing. Maybe relationships are breaking. Maybe your health is failing. You feel surrounded by darkness. But hear this truth, even in the darkest hour, God's light still burns. The same hand that allowed the storm has already written your deliverance. What you need to do is stop wrestling and start resting in prayer. Say, God, I trust your wisdom even when I do not understand your ways. When that prayer leaves your lips with sincerity, peace enters your heart before the circumstances change. And soon, the circumstances will follow that peace. Prayer is not about length. It is about depth. Some people speak many words but have little faith. Others speak few words, but their hearts tremble with belief. When you say, "Oh God, help me," with the full force of your soul, the heavens respond instantly. The universe bends toward the believer who refuses to give up. Remember, even a whisper from a heart full of faith is louder in heaven than 1,000 shouts from an empty soul. When you face hardship, do not run to people before you run to God. People may pity you, but only God can restore you. People may comfort you, but only God can transform you. The prayer that ends hardship is the prayer that begins in total surrender. Say, "Oh God, if this pain is meant to build me, then give me strength. If this storm is meant to teach me, then give me wisdom. But if it is time for deliverance, then let your mercy pour down upon me." Such words pierce through the clouds of despair and call forth divine power. There are times when God delays the answer because He is preparing you to handle the blessing. If He gave you the breakthrough too early, you might not have the strength to carry it. So while you wait, pray not with impatience, but with expectation. Say to yourself, God is working behind the scenes. Because He is. Even when you cannot see it, He is aligning people, shaping opportunities, softening hearts, and opening doors that will appear suddenly when the time is right. I remember a woman who once said, "I have prayed for years, but nothing changes." And I told her, maybe the change God wants is not in your surroundings, but in your soul. The next time she prayed, she stopped asking for the problem to vanish and started asking for the strength to endure it. And do you know what happened? The problem began to dissolve on its own. Because when your inner world is at peace, your outer world begins to align with it. God listens not to eloquence, but to sincerity. You do not need fancy words, you need a faithful heart. The greatest prayer you can ever pray is one word: God. Sometimes you cannot express your pain. Sometimes the tears speak louder than the tongue. But when the heart calls, heaven hears. There is no distance between your pain and God's presence. Hardship is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to develop you. Every struggle refines your faith. Every disappointment deepens your trust. When you pray in hardship, you are declaring that the storm does not control your spirit. God does. And when you declare that, the storm loses its power. Let me remind you, nothing is permanent in this world, not even suffering. Everything passes. What remains is how you respond. The prayer that ends hardship is not a magic spell. It is a declaration of faith that whatever comes, you will not be shaken. Say to yourself, this too shall pass, because my God is greater than my pain. When you live in prayer, your perspective changes. You begin to see challenges as divine classrooms. The loss that broke your heart teaches you compassion. The failure that humbled you prepares you for wisdom. The betrayal that wounded you opens your eyes to discernment. Everything that happens is a tool God uses to elevate your soul, if only you respond with faith. Some of you are asking, when will my breakthrough come? And I tell you, it begins the moment your heart stops doubting. Prayer is not just words, it is alignment. The instant your soul aligns with divine will, blessings begin to flow. Sometimes quietly, sometimes suddenly, but they always come. God never forgets a prayer spoken in truth. There are people who have prayed for years for one thing, and when they finally receive it, they realize God was not late. He was perfect in timing. Every delay was protection. Every rejection was redirection. Every silence was preparation. So do not despise the waiting. The waiting season is not a wasted season. It is a sacred process where your faith matures. When you pray during hardship, do not pray small prayers. Do not limit God with your own understanding. Speak boldly, believe greatly, and expect mightily. Say, "Oh God, I know you can turn this sorrow into joy. I know you can replace this loss with abundance. I know you can take this weakness and make it strength." That kind of prayer commands the attention of heaven. Faith-filled prayer does not ask, "Can God?" It declares, "God will." And when you declare it with confidence, creation itself begins to rearrange in your favor. There was once a farmer whose crops had failed year after year. The rain never came, and the ground was dry. Yet every morning, he would stand on the barren land, lift his eyes to the sky, and pray, "God, I thank you for the rain that is on the way." His neighbors mocked him, but he kept believing. Months later, clouds gathered, and the rain came heavier than ever before. The land that once looked dead blossomed again. The same neighbors who mocked him now came asking, "How did you know?" And he smiled and said, "Because I prayed and I believed." That is the spirit that ends hardship, prayer with gratitude before the blessing even arrives. Do not wait to thank God after the miracle, thank Him before it manifests. Gratitude is faith in action. When you thank God in advance, you are declaring that your faith is greater than your fear. When you pray, remove doubt from your heart. Doubt is the enemy of divine flow. It closes the doors that faith opens. Tell yourself, even if I cannot see it, God is working. Keep repeating it until your heart believes it completely. Because once your heart believes, miracles have no choice but to appear. There are prayers that shake the earth because they come from souls that have nothing left but faith. When all strength is gone, when all help has failed, and yet you still say, "Oh God, I trust you." That prayer becomes a roar in the spiritual realm. It commands change. It summons mercy. It shifts destiny. Do not underestimate the power of one prayer. A single moment of sincere connection with God can erase years of pain. A single cry from the depths of faith can turn curses into blessings, loss into restoration, darkness into dawn. Never say, "It is too late," because time does not limit God. He can restore in one day what you lost in 10 years. My friend, the prayer that ends hardship begins with surrender and ends with gratitude. Say, "Oh God, I surrender my plan for yours. I trust your timing. I trust your wisdom. I trust your love." That prayer becomes the bridge between your suffering and your breakthrough. Do not measure your life by how things look today. Faith is not sight. Faith is knowing that what God has promised is already on its way. Keep your hands lifted, your heart steady, and your hope alive, because the God who brought you this far will not leave you now. When you face the impossible, remember impossibility exists only in the mind, not in the heart that trusts God. If you can pray, you can overcome. If you can believe, you can rise again. Every hardship ends when the soul kneels in true faith. So rise. Wipe your tears. Speak to God not with fear, but with confidence. Say, "Oh God, this hardship shall end, and through it, your blessings shall unfold." And watch how the heavens respond to your faith. Because when prayer and belief unite, no hardship can stand, and every blessing locked in the unseen will find its way to you. There are seasons in life when everything seems silent. You pray, and it feels as though the heavens have closed their doors. You wait, and nothing moves. You call, and no answer comes. But let me tell you the truth. God's silence is not His absence. His stillness is not neglect. When God is silent, He is working in a dimension you cannot see. The roots of a tree grow deepest in silence, and in the same way, your roots of faith grow strongest in those quiet hours when no answer comes. The prayer that ends hardship does not stop at the sound of silence. It keeps believing through it. Because silence is often the final test before divine manifestation. In those quiet seasons, God observes not your words, but your endurance. Anyone can pray when the light shines and blessings overflow, but only a true believer prays when the sky is dark and the heart feels empty. That is the kind of faith that shakes the unseen world. It is easy to praise when life is good. It is holy to praise when everything hurts. When you can raise your hands and say, "Oh God, I still trust you," even as tears fall, you are declaring victory over despair. You are proving that your faith is not built on comfort, but on conviction. Understand this. Hardship is the battlefield of faith. Every test is an opportunity for your spirit to rise above fear. God does not test you to break you. He tests you to reveal you. To show you the strength that was hidden within your soul all along. You are stronger than you think. You are more resilient than you realize. You are not defined by what you lost, but by what you choose to believe in spite of it. Every hardship is a message from God saying, "Rise, my servant, for I am not finished with you yet." And when you pray during those tests, your words carry a fragrance that rises directly to God. Do not underestimate the beauty of your endurance. Every time you choose patience over panic, faith over fear, trust over complaint, you are worshiping in the purest form. Prayer is not just asking, it is living in surrender. It is saying, "God, I belong to you. Whether the path is smooth or steep, I will walk it with you." That kind of prayer transforms the soul into light. Some people think that blessings are only found in wealth, success, or comfort. But the greatest blessing is peace. The kind of peace that no hardship can steal. And peace is born in prayer. When you make prayer your first response, not your last resort, you will discover that your circumstances no longer control your joy. You can be surrounded by storms and still be calm, because you know the one who controls the winds. You can be in the valley and still sing, because you know the one who commands the mountain. Let me tell you something profound. God never wastes a struggle. Every pain has a purpose. Every loss carries a lesson. Every delay holds a destiny. You may not understand it now, but one day you will look back and realize that what you thought was the end was actually the beginning. The prayer that ends hardship is the one that trusts even when understanding fails. When you stop asking, "Why is this happening?" and start saying, "Oh God, show me what you are preparing me for," your entire life begins to shift, because faith changes not just outcomes. It changes perspective. Do not measure God's love by your comfort, measure it by His wisdom. God knows what you cannot see. Sometimes He closes one door because He is leading you toward a gate much greater. Sometimes He allows something to break so something eternal can be built. The hand that wounds to awaken also heals to restore. If you knew how much mercy is hidden even in your pain, you would weep in gratitude instead of despair. Many people pray only to escape hardship, but the wiser soul prays to evolve through it. When you pray with that kind of understanding, your hardship becomes your teacher, not your enemy. You begin to say, "Oh God, if you have written this trial for me, then let it polish my faith until I shine with trust." And when your soul reaches that level of surrender, blessings will chase you, not because you demanded them, but because you have become ready to receive them. True prayer is not an attempt to control life. It is an act of releasing life into God's control. The more you surrender, the more you receive. The more you cling, the more you lose. God does not fill closed hands, He fills open ones. When you release your fear, He gives you peace. When you release your plan, He gives you purpose. When you release your pain, He gives you healing. This is the sacred exchange of prayer. You give God your weakness, and He gives you His strength. Do you want to know the secret to unstoppable faith? It is gratitude in advance. Gratitude is the purest form of prayer. When you thank God before the blessing, you are declaring that you already trust His promise. Gratitude unlocks blessings faster than complaint ever will. Because complaint focuses on what is missing, but gratitude multiplies what is already there. When you say, "Oh, God, I thank you for the goodness that is coming," you are aligning your heart with abundance. The grateful heart never runs empty. Now listen, the reason some prayers feel unanswered is because they are spoken from the lips, not the heart. The heart is the true altar of prayer. You can fool the world with words, but not God. He listens to the pulse of your sincerity. Even if your words are broken, if your heart is genuine, the prayer reaches Him. Speak to God as you are. You do not need to pretend perfection. Bring your wounds, your confusion, your weakness. God already knows them. Prayer is not for His knowledge, it is for your healing. Sometimes, the most powerful prayer is not asking for anything, but sitting in stillness, saying, "Oh God, I am here." That stillness cleanses the soul. In that sacred silence, you will feel the presence that never left you. You will sense peace flowing into your chest like a warm light, reminding you that you are never alone. When you make prayer your lifestyle, hardship loses its sting. Because prayer turns adversity into intimacy. You stop fearing what life brings because you trust who holds your life. You begin to realize that God is not just the giver of blessings. He is the blessing. And when your heart connects with Him, every need becomes secondary. Some of you are praying for something specific, a door to open, a debt to clear, a pain to end. Do not despair if it takes time. Delay is not denial. Delay is discipline. It strengthens your patience and sharpens your perception. God is not making you wait to hurt you. He is making you wait to prepare you. Because sometimes, the blessing you desire requires the maturity you do not yet possess. So let patience finish its work in you. The deeper your roots, the higher your growth. And know this, the prayer that ends hardship is not always loud. Sometimes it is whispered through trembling lips. Sometimes it is spoken in tears that only God counts. Sometimes it is expressed not in words, but in the quiet endurance of a heart that refuses to quit. Do not underestimate those moments. The heavens move when faith refuses to surrender. You may think your prayers are small, but they are building momentum. Every, "Oh God, help me," stacks upon the last. Every act of trust lays another brick in the foundation of your breakthrough. Suddenly, one day, everything shifts, not by accident, but because your faith reached the appointed time. And you will look back and realize that every hardship was leading you to this victory. Prayer not only brings blessings, it changes identity. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, live differently. You stop chasing approval from others because you have already found acceptance in God. You stop fearing the future because you know the author of your destiny. You stop carrying guilt because you trust in divine mercy. You begin to glow with calm confidence. Not arrogance, but assurance that whatever happens, you are under divine care. When people see that peace in you, they will wonder, what secret does this person have? And you will know, it is not a secret, it is prayer. A life of prayer makes you unbreakable, because your hope no longer depends on circumstances, but on the eternal. And remember, God answers in 3 ways. Sometimes He says, yes, sometimes He says, not yet, and sometimes He says, I have something better. Every answer is a blessing in disguise. The problem is not that God does not respond. It is that we often do not recognize His answers because they come dressed in different forms. What you call a setback may be His protection. What you call a loss may be His redirection. What you call silence may be His preparation. So today, lift your heart and say, oh God, I trust You completely. Whether you are in joy or in sorrow, in gain or in loss, say it. Because that one declaration, I trust you, has the power to end every hardship. It is the highest form of prayer, the truest expression of faith. It tells the universe that you have surrendered control to the one who controls everything. You were not created to be defeated. You were created to walk in strength, to rise after every fall, to believe after every disappointment. And the weapon that keeps you standing is prayer. Every time life pushes you down, fall to your knees. Because from that position, you are closer to the power that lifts worlds. The moment you kneel, fear loses power, doubt fades, and faith begins to roar. And let me tell you this truth, no one who trusts God ever ends in shame. It may take time, it may test your patience, but victory is inevitable. Because hardship cannot last where faith stands firm. The heart that prays with sincerity will always see dawn after darkness. It is a divine law. The night must end when faith remains awake. So, my friend, when life feels unbearable, when the burden grows too heavy, when you do not know what else to do, pray, not as a last hope, but as your greatest weapon. Say, "Oh God, this is beyond me, but never beyond you. Take what I cannot carry, do what I cannot do, and guide me where I cannot see." That prayer, spoken in surrender, has the power to move mountains, calm storms, and rewrite your destiny. Because when you speak to God with the voice of faith, the unseen world begins to respond. Obstacles start to shift, paths begin to open, and blessings that were once hidden start flowing toward you. The very energy of your life changes, because you are now walking in alignment with the divine. And that, my beloved, is how every hardship ends, not by running from it, not by fighting it alone, but by rising in prayer and faith until the impossible bends before your trust in God. Now, my beloved brothers and sisters, listen with the ears of your heart, for these words are not meant to simply be heard. They are meant to awaken your soul. You have listened, you have wept, and perhaps deep inside you have remembered a time when your prayers once burned like fire. But the truth is this, it is time to rekindle that flame. It is time to rise once more and call upon God with the fullness of your being. Life was never meant to be lived by your strength alone. Every breath you take, every beat of your heart, is sustained by the mercy of the one who formed you. Do not let hardship silence your faith. Do not let fear rob you of prayer. For the very thing that feels like it is breaking you is the same thing God will use to build you if you surrender it to Him. You stand at a crossroads. One path leads to worry, the other to worship. One path leads to despair, the other to divine strength. Choose today whom you will trust. Choose faith over fear, prayer over panic, surrender over struggle. Because the moment you choose God with your whole heart, the universe itself begins to align in your favor. It is not that your problems will disappear overnight, but that your spirit will rise above them. You will no longer be crushed by what you carry, because the one who carries you is greater than all that burdens you. This is your call. Return to the secret place. Return to that sacred silence where you and God meet. Speak to Him honestly, with no masks, no rehearsed words, no pretending. Tell Him your doubts, your pain, your weakness, and your hopes, and then be still. Feel His nearness. Sense His mercy. Because He has never left you. He has only been waiting for you to turn your heart fully toward Him again. That turning, that simple act of returning, is the beginning of transformation. Let your heart be the house of prayer. Let your thoughts be purified by trust. Let your lips speak gratitude more than complaint. When you wake each morning, whisper, "Oh God, thank you for this breath." When you face uncertainty, declare, "Oh God, I know you have a plan." When you fall, do not despair, rise again and say, "Oh God, I am still yours." These are not small acts. These are the bricks that build an unshakable spirit. You may not realize it, but even now, as you listen, God is calling you back to your highest self. The self that lives with courage, speaks with kindness, and walks in light. There is a purpose written into your life that no hardship can erase. There is a strength within you that no failure can bury. There is a blessing prepared for you that no power on earth can block. But it all begins with one decision: to pray with faith, to live with trust, and to surrender every moment into the hands of God. Do not delay your transformation. Do not wait for a perfect moment. Begin now. Begin in the very situation you are in. Begin while you are still uncertain, still afraid, still struggling. Begin by whispering, "Oh God, I trust you." Because that single phrase, spoken from a heart that truly believes, is enough to shake the heavens. Walk forward from this moment with renewed vision. Let prayer be the rhythm of your life, and let faith be the melody that guides your steps. Do not merely survive your days. Fill them with remembrance, gratitude, and trust. When you speak, speak life. When you walk, walk in purpose. When you rise, rise in faith. And when you kneel, kneel not in defeat, but in surrender to the one who never fails. Remember, no darkness lasts forever. The dawn always comes for those who refuse to stop believing. So stand tall, breathe deeply, and lift your soul once more in prayer. The same God who sustained you yesterday is with you today, and He will guide you into a tomorrow filled with light. Your hardships are not your ending. They are the soil in which your blessings are growing. Keep watering that soil with prayer, and soon you will harvest peace, strength, and joy beyond what you can imagine. Now rise, not as someone crushed by life, but as someone chosen by God to overcome it. Let your words, your work, your very presence become a living testimony that faith still moves mountains, that hope still heals hearts, and that prayer still unlocks the impossible. Let your life itself become a prayer, echoing through the world with the message: with God, all hardships can end, and every hidden blessing will find its way home.